This is National Chessmaster R-Rats at chess.com, here to continue my video series on the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played down on board 160. Our lady is Currents, and she's playing Ian 007. And let's have a look. So it starts out a Caro-Kann, but it's not going to be. This looks like a pretty odd setup probably to all of you, but it's something I've been developing, and Currents is aware of it. It's nothing new, but it's an objective to play a generic opening against E4 and D4. And I'm testing it in my simul's as black. I call it the star system. Be a star, okay? It's probably got another name, but let's take a look and see the ideas of this. It doesn't go into the main ideas, what I'm intending, and we'll see why in a moment. Okay, I think probably the most accurate move at this point is to play E5, and that'll stop everything that happens. And the basic objective is that black is then going to play his knight to F6, and this is similar to the King's Indian attack that I've been using, but with colors reversed. But there's a difference. The difference is this bishop goes to E7. It doesn't fianchetto to G7. And when it fianchettos to G7, this pawn has to be up at G6, correct? Now what I've been doing in my King's Indian attack with colors reversed is the moment this pawn pushes up, we capture this knight, just jettison our queen bishop. But now this bishop has an option to retreat, and if it gets kicked again, or even later if it doesn't, it will go back to the G6 square, which is now available in this position, and apply some pressure on E4. And black delays castling, usually until white's committed, which side he's going to castle, and black can choose to castle the same side or opposite side and launch a pawn storm. Anyway, here comes knight F6, and now it breaks. This breaks the system with E5. Okay, and black's going to get a little bit of difficulty here. Here, white comes up with a creative pawn sacrifice, and now it might be best to just let white spend time and take that. Let's get the development going, okay? Possible is G6 with the idea if knight takes, pawn takes, white develops something, black plays bishop G7 and gets ready to castle. And maybe we can even get E5 in. If we have to lose this pawn on E6, we have to lose it. It's just something to think about. You don't always have to try to hang on to your pawns, because this is taking tempos away from black's game. Now here I think black's response is premature. The simplest move probably to make and safe move is E6. Okay, E6 will just let black continue her development and make white come up with a plan against this strategy. White has given up a pawn for this position, and black is close to having complete development. See, black, after this move, black has 3 pieces developed, including the queen. White has 2 and is castled, so development's about even, with white preserving maybe only the advantage of the first move, and black having, see, just that's it. Oh, can't put the queen on D2. I'm good at those one movers. Or C2, gotta put it on D2. Now here, if black castles, you can see both sides of castle, both sides develop their 3 minor pieces, both sides develop their queen. The queen rooks haven't been developed, but black is a pawn ahead. This would have been an ideal position for black, then try to slowly increase the territory, get a minority attack started, try to open up some lines on the queen side, trade some minor pieces, trade some rooks, go into an ending that can be won. But what happens is black commits one of these fundamental errors. We'll get to it when we find the right position. Here we go. Of opening up the position when you're not castled. Okay, this can be in combination with opening up the position when you're behind in development. See, the black king is not safe yet. It will be in a few moves, if with just the simple E6, bishop E7, and castles. But when black plays, oops, let's get that pawn up one. There we go. When black plays E5, this starts creating a possibility to open up some lines. And And then suddenly the white pieces that really didn't have a great deal of scope in the line I just showed do have scope. So now looks like black's going to have to give back this pawn and comes up and centralizes the knight. But now black's given up the pawn immediately, and look at the white queen. The white queen is very menacing, and I don't think black found the right path here. Just starts getting a potentially very bad game. Comes up with the move f6, and I think with f4 white is crushing. This knight just doesn't have good places to go. You don't have time to stop and take this one because white will take here, opening up an attack on f5. But the move white plays is adequate too. This gains a tempo on the queen. And now black's giving back the pawn, got an isolated pawn on d6, and now black proceeds to shut her bishop in with queen e7. And here's another point I think where f4 could be very strong possibly. But anyway, regardless, white liquidates the bishop, and white doesn't find really the right path here. Is letting black escape some of this mess, because you see black couldn't castle. Now black probably not going to castle, but now white's suddenly a pawn ahead, and black has to castle by hand, and white's happy to trade off into what could be theoretically a winning ending. However, white starts to misplay this theoretically one ending. White's just a clear pawn ahead. Black has a weak pawn on d6. White hasn't completed his development. White's next move makes absolutely no sense. White played it. What's wrong with this move? Well, first off, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what's right with this move. This pawn now keeps this knight out of e5. But did black really want to go there? Oh, maybe. But there might be a better way. Oh, sorry. Let me back this up. There might be a better way to keep a knight out of e5. How about just let him go there and not worry about things? So maybe let's develop a piece. Close down the e file, and we'll get on it later. Keep pressure on a6 so that it ties a rook down. Okay, this develops a piece. The other problem with f4 is it's reducing the mobility of this bishop. And why do you want to restrict the squares your pieces can go to? It's like you've dug yourself a little hole in the ground, and you're hiding down there for whatever reason, and you add more dirt so you have less room to move. Why do you do these things? I don't understand. Just trying to come up with analogies. And black makes a very fine move, restricts that pawn so it can't advance, so this bishop won't come free. And now white continues to make bad moves, putting a pawn on yet another square of the bishop, reducing the mobility of this bishop yet further. This bishop might have gone to a3 and attacked this pawn on d6. But nope, doesn't happen. Okay, so, oops, went too far. Hit the wrong button. Okay, black takes the e-file. And suddenly black is on the 7th rank. And black is close to having a fully equal game here. Now eyeballing the square c4. A square that white gave possible control or contesting control of away when played b4. And with having a rook on the 7th rank is incredible compensation. And even though the rooks do get traded, black is still looking pretty good here. White's got the advantage, but not by much. Look how this knight dominates this bishop. Black doesn't want to trade the bishop, but the bishop doesn't really have a good square to go to, especially if the kings vanish from the area. Now it forces black to put his pawn on a square. White can never attack it. And I think owing to the fact that the other game had ended on move 23, I'm assuming white offered a draw here and it was gladly accepted. 10 moves later, white just didn't want to play another 20, 30, 40 moves. But white does have all the winning chances here. yet black is setting up a decent blockade. It's going to take a long time. I was just kind of tinkering with it a little bit. Here, I'll just show you what I was looking at. Something like this. And bring this king over here. Now g6. Now this is kind of interesting. Okay, now what's black do? Well, maybe plays d5. Well, here's an interesting, not quite. Yeah, here's an interesting situation where white can offer his bishop, and black can't accept. So the objective here is to try to get this bishop into play. See, if knight takes, this pawn runs, and you don't get back in time. There's no way to gain a tempo with a check or maneuver the knight. See, it's clear that pawn is going to queen. Now, of course, there's nothing making black take the knight, but the point is this is a little technique that you can use to get this bishop activated. So let's suppose, and the one drawback with the knight is the knight can't lose the tempo, a bishop can. So let's say you go back here. Well, suddenly this bishop's coming into play, and suddenly that pawn is going into play. And maybe white's making some progress here, but white has all the fun. Black is getting tied down here. See, black's close to getting in Zugzwang here. His king can't move. He'll lose this pawn on g6, so he's stuck with the knight move. And now, as I was saying, black can or white can lose the tempo. Let's go for this target, just for the fun of it. Now, none of this is forced. I'm just kind of having fun. How does black defend this pawn? Well, the answer is he doesn't. So black makes a beeline for b6, but he ain't going to get there in time. And my guess is this position is theoretically winning for white. So here we're only at move 49. I was saying 30. White didn't want to play another 30, 40 moves. How about another 20, 25 moves? But anyway, you held your own currents. Good game. Nice comeback there. Definitely room for improvement in this opening. Oh, it was board. I didn't say the board number these folks are playing on there. Board 160. We have a low 1600 to low 1500 rating advantage. Well, let's bring up the other game and see what happens. Let's back this up, flip the board, and we're off and running. Okay, so we get the Queen's Gambit accepted. And this is a very interesting line, although white should be fine out of it. Now, bishop takes. Now, white actually has a threat here. The threat is bishop takes f7 check, and if king takes, knight takes e5 check, and white's going to regain his piece and be up, or her piece, and be up 2 pawns, right? And black decides to check. And both sides immediately make blunders. Now, what's wrong with knight f6? It's a logical developing move. Well, there's a trick here. It's called a fork. White to play and win. Pause the video, see if you can find it. I've given you the theme. Okay, resume the video. The answer is queen a4 check. Okay, attacks the king, attacks the bishop, and the only way to defend that is with knight c6. Now there was your fork. Now the theme is a pin. We're attacking that pin piece on c6, and if black breaks the pin, he's going to lose his piece, and white's just coming out a clear piece ahead. There's nothing black can do. Okay, so white missed that, queen e2, and I'm assuming black saw it. Maybe he didn't, but just wanted to get rid of this. But there's no danger, queen a4 check. So I don't quite understand bishop takes a3 or c3, and now takes again. And here I think white missed a really good move, e5. Actually, this is a situation where bishop takes f7 check is playable again. Let's see, bishop takes, king takes, knight check. Now the king's lost casting privileges. Where are you going to put him? Let's try f8. Knight takes. I'll just take it for the fun of it. Now, what's happened here? White has 5 pawns, black has 6, but the pawn on c6 is kind of advanced. White's ahead in development. White can gain an immediate tempo on the queen. And let's see. I'm just playing here. try this. Check. And I don't want to check there. I want to check here. Okay, now the point is I'm going to answer queen here with queen takes c3. Black develops a knight, and it's kind of like the pawn structure is similar to what happens in a Danish gambit, yet there's a lot of differences. The queens are still on the board. The queens come off, and that you go right to an ending, and the black king is exposed and blocking communication of the rooks. So I think clear advantage white. There's probably better lines in here for white. That's how you improve. You know, I can't sit here and show you absolutely the precise move to play. This is one thing. There's a difference. If I've talked about it before, I haven't talked about it in a while. I don't need to bring perfection in these videos. In other words, I don't need to show you what exactly is the best move. In other words, like 50 years ago, the days before you had the chess engines, the chess masters had to produce, if they were annotating a game, they had to produce an absolutely perfect analysis, because somebody would poke holes in it, and then their reputation would be, oh my goodness, don't trust Grandmaster Schutzenpotzer because he can't analyze his way out of a paper bag. Okay, well, if I was to do that, to sit here and I could spend 5 hours to give you an absolute perfect video, and then this is counterproductive. What I'm teaching is how to analyze a position. Even when you play a game, I don't see the grandmasters talk about this. When you're actually playing a game, you're going to analyze bad moves. You're going to analyze poor moves, and hopefully you discover why they're bad moves and don't play them. Okay, and so when you're playing a game and you're considering all these various possibilities, you don't get to move around the pieces like we do in a post-mortem analysis or in a correspondence game. You have to do it all from with the initial position in your head, right? You're going to analyze bad moves. It's forced. So how do you get better at chess? Well, you analyze. That's what I'm doing. I'm showing you how to analyze. I'm just playing out continuations that make sense to me. And each variation I've shown you has a subvariation. Well, if you're really heavy into correspondence chess, like I was back in the 80s, 1980s, and 90s, then you take these things out even further. All these subvariations, you just look. And what about this? What about this? What about this? Eventually, you can, with a few hours invested on a move, you can pretty much cover all the bases. And not only will you find the best move, you'll find the best line. Well, I don't have hours and hours to make a video to show you how to find the best line, but I'm showing you how you can take a board with your position and start analyzing and see what you come up with. So, like I say, none of these were forced. Black did not have to interpose his queen. Black can move his king again. He can try his luck back in the center because the e-file's not open, right? Then maybe black or white can throw a tempo on the queen. Then maybe black offers another queen trade, and then he's forking the queen and the a2 pawn. I don't know what's best. That's where you come in. You analyze this stuff to death. You find the possibilities, and your chess will improve. So anyway, where were we in the game? He missed the e5. Let's back this up. I'm not. But black or white found a very interesting move. Bishop takes f7 was possible. Oops, that's not what he played. She played bishop a3. White opts to take away castling privileges for black. Very interesting move. So something has gone wrong with black's opening. Why has this happened? If not only did white have bishop takes f7 check, why has black's game gone bad? Well, let's look at it. Number one, black got rid of his dark squared bishop when he didn't have to. That's one reason. Black develops. Now, what white should do is get castled. Don't worry about this pawn. You can collect it later. White can also play e5, and I think that forces this knight back to g8, pretty much. That's going to be very vulnerable on h5. No need to take this pawn back, but it works out. And now black's trying anything to get castled. And here's a point I think white should have just gone and castled. Because now white's going to lose castling privileges here. Here they come. And Uh, it looks to me like the advantage white had is starting to disappear. And now black's gaining a tempo on the white queen, and the queen goes back to original square, trying to maintain a pawn here. And now it's kind of funny. Black just creates his own death here in just a few moves. We'll see how he does this. Okay, here comes black's mistake. The first mistake I think was to give white the double pawns. But in combination with what black now does, is it just borders on I wouldn't say insanity. It just borders on inexperience. Okay. Uh, Here's an interesting motive here. See this white pawn down here? That's a nuisance, right? Well, I've had that pawn get down there before, and you probably have too. And if you haven't, you will. How do you treat a pawn like that? Well, you know what? It's not threatening anything. It's taking a couple squares away from you, but it's not threatening anything. There's nothing helping it out. What you do is you leave that pawn there, and you substitute it as if it was one of your own. You don't take it now. You trade off the pieces, then you take it later, and when it's safe to take it. And right now it's not safe to take it. Black should think about getting his pieces into play. Like, for instance, just take a pawn. That opens up a C file. Can this knight be redeployed? Yes, it can come up. Not yet. I'm sorry. But if you take the pawn, it's getting ready to come into E5 with threats. But let's see what happens. Black takes the pawn. Yay! He's got restored material balance. He has 5 pawns each now. But now white's got moves that he didn't have before. And suddenly, because that pawn is no longer there, white's got ways to attack the black king. And that's exactly what happens. And the king has to run out. Now this rook comes into play. And now comes a new check on d6. And white has basically a forced mate here. And black decided to resign here because he's mated. After knight f8, it's rook takes mate. So it wasn't perfectly played by both sides, but this is indicative of the kind of ways correspondence chess is played. Players rush moves. They may miss moves, even if they're working. Like sometimes you miss moves. Well, it's okay if you miss them. You get better as you go. I don't know how close they looked when this left the database. Did both players look it up? It would seem to me that this is in the book because it moves 6 because this loses a piece. I don't think bishop b4 is the right move. I'm not sure what the right move is, but it's an aggressive playing e5 is an aggressive way for black to meet this opening, and both sides plays the reasonable game. Once white let her advantage slip, black was coming back, but the moment black stopped and took this g pawn, especially after opening up a line for white, it just boggles my mind how you could let that happen to you. But that's how you learn chess, and these are the kinds of mistakes players will make against you. You watch these videos, you're going to see the types of mistakes players make, and not only be able to recognize them, but create a plan to take advantage of them. Anyway, thanks so much for your time. Glad you're looking, and take care. I'll be back with another video soon.